Hey friends! Today I am trying my hand at putting together my very first worm composting bin. That's right, I am trying vermicomposting. If you don't know what it is, I'm about to tell you, so let's go. Alright, so what you see before me are my supplies for what will become my in-ground worm composting bin. What is an in-ground worm composting bin? I'm so glad you asked. It is a way of composting that is super convenient, super small, doesn't require a lot of space, nourishes your garden in the process of getting compost, and then at the end you get incredibly nutrient-rich compost fertilizer for your garden. And you do this by recycling kitchen scraps from your own kitchen. So it's a really great way to do a part to reduce waste and also to create your own incredibly rich soil for your garden. All right, I gotta sit down because we gotta talk about this. So as I was building this garden, I knew that I wanted to imply as many homesteading tactics and techniques as I could. Now, if you watch this channel, you know that I don't actually live on a sprawling acreage of a homestead. Instead, I'm creating as much of a homestead as I can in a suburban backyard. I live in the suburbs of a metro area in a community that has an HOA. So I am restricted in the things that I can do. But the idea of like managing a multi-section compost pile and also somehow keeping it from becoming a nuisance for my neighbors or attracting critters and just kind of like learning all of that at one time seemed really overwhelming to me. So I really loved the idea of worm composting. So started researching worm composting because I use worm castings, which is what you get when you worm compost, in my garden. I learned that a couple of seasons ago and I use them in my garden all the time. And worm castings are basically just the fertilizer from worm composting, which is just worm poop. It is the worms digest soil and leaves and cardboard and coconut coir and kitchen scraps, and they turn it into nutrient-rich worm castings. So the cool thing about worm composting is it can be done in plastic containers. So whether you buy really big plastic containers or have like a multi-tiered worm farm like some people do, it's pretty manageable. The other great thing about that is you cover them. So you're not really inviting rodents or critters into your composting situation, which for me, living in an HOA, was a really big deal. The thing that I got the most excited about as I was researching worm composting was the idea of in-ground worm composting, which means that you actually bury the composting bin in your garden. And since I have raised bed gardens, this seemed like kind of a no-brainer since they're not in the ground where earthworms would kind of stumble upon them anyway. The thing I think is so cool about this is as your worms are creating the worm castings in the bucket, they also are able to go in and out of the bucket throughout your garden, so they're also enriching the soil of your main garden bed, and also little bits of the worm castings can kind of leach out and they nourish your garden. So it's kind of like a win-win-win scenario. And I'm a rookie, so I'm sure there are reasons why, but I don't know why everyone doesn't just do it this way, because it just seems like a no-brainer. I guess the thing is that you have to give up a little bit of your garden space because you can't plant anything above this, but to me it seems totally worth it. So what I'm going to be doing is drilling holes all throughout here, not a ton, but a little bit so that the worms can go in and out. This is going to get filled up with these different layers of stuff and the worms, kind of like a lasagna layer situation. And then I'm going to bury it in the garden to right about the lip of the bucket. So the top will be sticking out above the dirt so that I can open it and close it, and that way no other animals can get in. When it rains, it's not pouring in the top, and it's all kind of safe and secure. And then I won't be planting anything on top of it, so plants will go around it. And that's it. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, right? So you can watch me do this process, and we'll see if it's as simple as everybody says it is, but it seems pretty simple. So red wigglers are the worms that you use for worm composting. So these are my very first suburban homestead pets. Bob really doesn't want you to for this to accidentally come open, which, you know, that's good. Good job, Bob. Like, in shipping, could you imagine, like, opening your box and it just being, like, worms crawling everywhere? Oh my goodness. Should I wait till my kids get home and make them do this? That would be kind of fun. Oh, it's just, like, right here. It's just, like, dirt right there with worms. Oh, I've actually never stuck my hand into a thing of worms before. Oh, that feels weird. Okay, all right. All right, be brave. Be brave, Becca. Woo! They're really wiggling. Okay, okay, okay. We're okay. We're okay. Can you see them? Woo! Focus, camera. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, they're going back. Okay, so I got my worms, got my bucket, got all my supplies. So what you'll need to make this is a food grade plastic container. You'll need a bedding for them. So to make the bedding for mine, based on some different tutorials, this is what I chose. I've got coconut coir, and it's already moistened to the consistency of a wrung out sponge. I have got some potting soil. You could also use just native soil to your area, as long as you don't have any pesticides or anything in it. I've got some cardboard and shredded paper. I've got some dried oak leaves from the tree. I've got kitchen scraps, and that's it. That's all you need. You just kind of layer everything. So I'm going to show you as I go. So if you've never heard this term before, vermicomposting is just composting using worms. So there's compost, and then vermicompost would be like a subcategory of compost that is made by using earthworms to take organic matter and turn it into fertilizer. It's that simple. The main difference between vermicompost and regular compost, and why a lot of people think that this is a better bang for your buck, although both are really important for your garden, is that vermicompost has higher levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It's also better for improving the structure of your soil as well as the water retention. Because of the density of it, it just helps hold moisture in your soil a little better than regular compost. So both are great. This just gives a little extra boost over regular organic compost. Let's do it, shall we? So we're gonna start with a bunch of the bedding. Okay, so I'm new to this. So this is all me learning and just sharing with you as I go, and also just like sharing with you what I've learned through research and educating myself. This is all just stuff I learned on YouTube and Google. So if you're here and you're a new gardener and you're like, how the heck, that might be a little too much. How the heck do you know all this stuff? Like, I'm just teaching myself as I go. And if I mess something up here, I'll adjust and do better next time. And I think that mentality really serves me in everything in life, but especially in the garden. Okay, so there's not really rules on like exactly this much. So I think I added a little too much of this stuff to the bottom. So I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna add some of the potting soil. And this, apparently, what they say is just to add a little bit of like grit. So I'm just gonna mix it up. Now I'm gonna add the cardboard and paper and some of the leaves. And I'm just gonna like mix everything up. And this is the bedding for the worms. So this is also their food though. They don't only eat the kitchen scraps. They will eat all of this. And that's why I've read, that's why you add the soil, because it adds a little grit in their digestive system and helps them digest it, which is super fascinating. So what I've heard is that you make like a little pocket for the food. So I'm gonna kind of like create a little pocket. So let's talk about the things that you can put in your vermicompost. So kitchen scraps are great, but there's a few things that you shouldn't ever put in. So here's what they are. You shouldn't ever put in any sort of animal product. So no meat, no fat, no bones, no anything like that. You also shouldn't put in citrus. You shouldn't put in spicy peppers. Not necessarily because it's dangerous, but I've just read that the worms don't do well with them. You also shouldn't put any oils. So don't put in like your leftover cooking oil or anything that is like soaked in oil. The other thing that I've heard is that you should not put in things that have really strong smell, like onions and garlics, mostly just not because it will hurt anything, but mostly because they'll smell really strong and they might attract other animals to your composting bin. So these are, the rule of thumb is that if it doesn't smell, like doesn't have a strong odor on your kitchen counter, then it won't have a strong odor in your bin. So what I have in here is some apple pieces, some strawberry pieces, some celery pieces, and a banana peel. And this is just like from the last day and a half of us chopping stuff up. So I'm gonna start with this and we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna pour it in. You ready for the worms? All right, we have a giant bag of wigglers. Oh, they feel so weird. Okay. Here you guys go. You see them in there? Why are you covering up?
Because they like the dark.
Oh, you're so smart.
I'm gonna let Cadence do the others. The rest.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
A little bit
I'm
more.
gonna sprinkle a few leaves.
With my hand.
Good job. Good. All right, thank you. I am going to just top them off with a little bit of coconut coir, a little bit of this. Yeah, I'm just gonna cover them so that they are fully submerged. Then we'll put the lid on and we'll go dig a hole and put it in the garden. I had to put the composting bin under the chicken wire because there's still some seedlings. Eventually the chicken wire will all be gone, but it's super easy to take the lid on and off. In fact, it's so easy that I think I might use like a rock or stone once the chicken wire is gone, just to make sure that like possums or the cranes can't come and like tap the lid off, because it doesn't really snap down. So the worms are all in. I've got kitchen scraps in there. They're already starting, and I've heard that it can take about a month for this to transform. But how cool that in a month I'm going to have 2 gallons of worm casings, and then I can just keep continuing to fill this up. If this goes well, I might even do some more in other areas of the garden, or maybe in one of the other raised beds, just to give myself more, or maybe I'll just do a worm bin somewhere else that's not in the ground. But this was so simple, really fun. It was fun to get the kids involved. Some of the neighborhood kids were here and they just thought it was the coolest thing to like hold the worms, and when I told them that the worms make dirt for the garden, they were like mind blown. So we talked about the whole cycle of the worms, like eating the food and eating the dirt and turning it into poop, and that being like so good for the garden. It was just like a really fun conversation. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be a fun thing for our family in the garden and a really beneficial thing for the ecosystem of the garden. Feels like all wins. So I'll keep you posted. Thanks for hanging out.